had mentioned that they're all things that are good and things that you're going to need to do anyway. But there's a few specifics that if you tweak them and really dial in on that, that's where you're going to start to see the breakthroughs. But your question was, how do you use his prey drive, right? How do you use Guinness's prey drive?
Yeah.
To your benefit.
Because I think to my benefit, because it's insane. And like I said, he can call off of small prey.
Yeah.
But dogs, it just doesn't happen. He goes totally deaf,
And when, I'm so sorry, I was editing right before this and I didn't get my stuff set up. Here it is. I was just looking for my notes. Just before, I jumped on here. So, okay, so go back through the list that you gave me that was
what I do with them.
Yep.
Okay, so I do hand feeding and scatter feeding. I do scent work.
Okay.
Like scent games and things. I do enrichment things. I do some confidence building because he's actually not very confident,
right,
even though it's pretty scary when he sees a dog. We do a walk in the morning and a walk at night, either in a secluded area or in our alley.
Okay.
And then we play fetch. I do some flirt pole, but he gets he stops pretty much right away and just waits for it to come to him. He doesn't like to chase it back and forth. Which is funny because if I let him, he'd go after a squirrel or a dog or something.
Right.
But the flirt pole, he's like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. Just let it come to me.
Okay.
So I do the fetch, tug. I do tug. He loves tug. What else did I say I did? Long line work.
Okay.
I use a slip lead. I used to use an e-collar and a prong collar, but honestly, it made his reactions worse because it would make him more frustrated. So I stopped using that.
Okay.
So those are the big things that I do. I do ready catch and leave it, and I do some recall work. But all of that stuff is fairly solid in the house. It's okay outside in our yard when it's low distraction. But if the distraction level goes up at all, especially around a dog, he just forgets everything I've told him. So.
Okay. And then out of working with him, do you work with him more, or does your husband?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is his, I don't want to, does he respect you as much as he would your husband?
If I'm being honest, I think he respects me more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just, oftentimes it gets flipped just because we're us, and that's just sometimes how it is. Okay, the one thing that I wanted to make mention of is because you had said, so his reactivity and his drive towards other dogs is over the top.
Right.
Is it just the prey drive, not the reactivity?
The reactivity is over the top. He could go from laying in a calm down with me, just taking in the scenery, to ready to kill the moment he sees a dog.
Okay.
Like, just off.
And is it just dogs, or is it anything else?
It's just dogs.
It's just dogs.
He will have minor reactions because he's got a big old blockhead, so he has a hard time seeing.
Okay.
So if he's not quite sure what it is, I might have to work him through a mild reaction, but he'll work down for me through those. Okay. But the dogs, he sees red.
And when you work him down from the smaller situations, what does that look like?
I'll create more distance. If he'll do it, I'll hand feed him.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll just either get him to sit until he will look at me, and then I can hand feed him. And then as soon as I get him where he'll look at me and take some food, then we can gradually move closer. He'll whine and he'll try to move ahead, but he'll start to look to me before he tries to go after it after that.
Okay.
So he's still worked up, but as long as I can get him far enough back to where he'll engage with me again, then he'll allow me to work him closer until he sees what it really is.
Okay. And then you said that you let him hunt mice?
He doesn't actually ever catch them, but like if it's in the tall grass or something, you can tell he's smelling like a frog or a mouse or a mole, and he'll burrow into the grass and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So and then the live I'm doing, I have it up here so they can't see you. It's just me, and it's on YouTube. So if you're here, you're here. I might not post this. I don't know. Well, it's going, I mean, I might take it down. I don't know what we're going to do with it. Because I had planned on bringing Billy out, but I got Kuma out here. And she's not going to give me anything. So I might have to run in and grab Billy. With the in-the-house stuff, and I know you've been doing this for a while and you've been like dialed in with everything. As far as structure goes in the house, what's his normal day look like?
His normal day is, so we wake up about 5:30. He sleeps in a crate.
Okay.
So if we're sleeping or out of the house, he's in a crate. So we wake up about 5:30. He goes out for his bathroom break and his walk when the sun comes up. So anywhere between 6:45 and 7.
Okay.
And then, that my husband deals with that. He takes him out to the secluded area. He does his snifaris, his bathroom break thing. Comes back, he has breakfast, play with him a little bit. By that point, it's time for us to leave for work usually. So then he goes back into his crate for the day. I'm gone about 7 hours for work. So then when I come home, I take him out for half an hour with his kibble. I scatter feed, I hand feed. We go for a walk up and down the alley. If the atmosphere is low enough, I will venture a little further around our block, but I try not to because we have a ridiculous amount of off-leash dogs in our neighborhood. So I try not to do that just to not risk doing that.
Yeah.
So I do that for about half an hour, mixing of scatter feeding. I'll do some scent games, so I'll hide some stuff for him.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll mix in some confidence building work, and then bring him in and we'll play for about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how much energy he has, how much he expelled outside. And then him and our other dog will chill in the living room. Maybe they'll play together a little bit. I really only require them to place if I'm trying to cook some food, and I obviously don't want them in and out of the kitchen.
Okay.
And then when we sit down to eat, they do have to place. And then we'll play a little bit more at some point during the night, whether it's tug or ball, whatever he's in the mood for.
Okay.
And then about 9 o'clock, they know it's time for bed. So then they go out for their last bathroom break, and then he's ready to go back in his crate.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So and you brought him a really long ways. How long have you been working with him?
It's like a year and a half now.
A year and a half.
When we got him, he had absolutely no obedience. He was found on the streets of Chicago.
Okay.
So, and somebody owned him, but when they called the owner, he didn't want to come get him. Okay. So I imagine he was probably just too much dog for him.
Sure. Has he ever got a hold of a dog or gotten into fights since you've had him?
He has gotten a hold of a dog twice.
Okay.
Once was out of defense because our neighbor's dog, they must have just gotten him and it got away from him when they were walking him out to go tie him out. And they said he was coming to play, but that dog was barreling.
Yeah.
So Guinness got a hold of him, but he did not hurt him.
Okay.
Somehow he got a hold of the back of his neck.
Okay.
And my husband was able to get him off.
Okay.
And then the second time, our neighbors have this hound dog, and I don't know what it is about this hound dog, but he just hears it bark and he wants to kill it.
Okay.
And he actually busted his tie out that time, and he went after the dog.
Okay.
Again, he didn't hurt him that time either, but he did bite him. He had a hold of him. So I had to pull him away from that.
And you were able to get him off?
I grabbed his collar and twisted and then yanked and told him to get off. And he came with me. I mean, I had to drag him into the yard, but he came with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's a big dog.
He's 96 pounds.
Yeah. He's
yeah.
brute. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The third time he had his muzzle on, but it was an off-leash dog, and if he hadn't had his muzzle on, he probably would have bit her too.
Okay.
But he just chased her home and
Okay.
then followed her into her garage.
Okay. Well, so like with those kinds of things, and I mean, I know that it's red zone for you when he sees that. So the big, with everything that you're working through, you've made it this far, but you can't get him, like it's not going to get better unless you can start getting a little bit stronger with some of the things you're already working on, and then in conjunction start reintroducing some of that stuff, but in a really controlled manner, which is very difficult to do with where you're at, but it's not impossible. And getting, but you have to get closer to some of those situations, but you can't get closer to them until the things you're working on right now that I'm going to go over are bulletproof, like bulletproof strong. And I will go get Billy because I want you to hear and see what this looks like when you're working with a dog like this, because you can do it. And the fact that he's gotten into those situations and you've been able to get him off is a lot. Like that speaks a lot to what's happening. I know you mentioned his insecurity, and you know there's a different kind of fight that breaks out when he's going for the kill. When this isn't a level of insecurity or a level of, hey, I gotta hold my own because they're gonna get me first kind of situation. Right. Not saying that it can't lead to worse. It absolutely can, if it happens enough. But where he's at right now, it sounds like he probably didn't have a great setup before, and maybe some shit happened back then, or who knows, maybe it was out of boredom. All of these things can come into play. Maybe it was all these different things. So you got it. But in order for these things to get better, you have to pick. So what I would do is I would just pick 2 to work on for the week. Okay. And work on them until they're bulletproof. Do you use a clicker?
I have a clicker, and he does like the clicker. He's
I would add,
with it.
I would add the clicker into everything you're doing, and I'll show you how to do that and where to put it in, because the most aggressive dogs that I've worked with, whether it was human or dog, the clicker is like, it's just such a unique noise that when you train it with nothing and then build up to some of those bigger situations, they can still hear it. And because the way that we train it is, it's fun, it's a game, it's just like everything else. But you have the ability of the clicker not being riddled with anxiety or being, tripped out, or their voice shaking, or not being strong enough, that kind of stuff. So you can practice in lower level environments before you get to some of those bigger ones. And then eventually, you just, like you did with the muzzle, you have to have that in place and go for it. And so with you not using the prong or the e-collar, which I don't use for these situations anymore either, for all the same reasons, when your timing's not there, when you have a certain kind of dog that just doesn't give a shit about that stuff, it really just doesn't matter. So, but that doesn't mean I won't correct a dog. Like working with Billy, doing this kind of stuff with him, there's been a couple times where he knows the command and maybe it just something popped out at us too quickly, and I can use the command to dial it down, and then I might still give a leash pop to, hey, I'm talking to you, to get his attention back over to me, or poke him in the butt. Like I'll use my knee to pop him in the butt so he flips all the way around, that kind of thing. And then we're back, and then we're good, and then you can get there. So your leave it command is going to be your saving grace. And because you already have a dog that's very food driven, this is like your advantage. This will do more for you right now than the ready catch will. Because the way that they're trained is when you really, really focus on that leave it, and I would do it until you do it in your backyard or inside your house, wherever you really bulletproof it, where it is, it's almost boring because it's so good. And then you go to that backyard area and you do the same exact thing, and you do it and that might take 3 or 4 days. Don't expect really quickly. He might do it really quickly. If he does it really quickly, just add a little bit of variety in your own element. Like really work on that for a couple of days before you do anything else. And then when you start going out for your walks, do your regular walk, but do a few situations on that walk where you need to use it. And so because you do the food scatter, You know, do you just throw food when you do the food scatter?
Yeah.
So because you do the food scatter in the beginning, and this is what I put in the leash reactivity course, in the beginning, he's going to get it and it's not going to be a big deal. You could throw the food down and tell him to leave it. And after you've already practiced for that, 4, 5, 6 days, he'll know. But for me, I still don't want too much confusion in there. I still don't want to I don't want to test it yet like that, because my food scatter's solid. I want my leave it to be solid. So I will take and do just exactly what I did in the video or in the reactivity course, and I'll take extra food with me. I'll pop it down, I'll walk away with them, and then I'll walk back and call a leave it. But because it's outside, where there's more stimulus, more stuff happening, it's still a big deal. He can see it all day long, but it's still a big deal. So you have to remember the leave it. The second he takes his face away from it, the second he comes back to you, you immediately got to reward it. Immediately. Yep. You got to reward it quickly, and you got to get excited about it. That's a big deal for him to leave it. And so with a dog like him, because you need to use everything you got right now as your advantage. So that back pedal with a quick, yes, leave it, yes, good boy, and really getting jazzed up, smacking him on the ass, telling him it was a good, make it into this game where that was so great that you just did that. And again, I'll grab Billy so you can see what this looks like. That was so great that you did that by the time the walk's over, you're tired. This is where this stuff is hard because it's exhausting. You physically are gonna be wiped out from just thinking about it and the timing and moving around, and then you want to move with him. You want to add some of that with him, because again, these are situations where could you e-call or correct it? Probably. Are you going to do the timing right? Probably not. And even if you did it that way, it's such a difficult thing to duplicate that you're not actually going to work him through whatever that insecurity is. You're always, and then you've trained avoidance. And if you train avoidance correctly, great. And if you need to, then do it. But for the long run of this dog, you're way better off doing it this way, because you're going to build all that relationship with him. And you're going to see all the breakthroughs. Just going to take a little bit longer. But that leave it is so important, because what ends up happening is you're working this into where it's not leave it, pop the leash. It's not leave it, don't do that. I said, knock it off. It's leave it, this is a game. Leave it, oh yeah. And now what you do is you have to match energy. You have to match your dog's energy. So if I've got a dog like Guinness or a dog like Billy, leave it because I want it to be whoo, we're doing something fun. Leave it, and then I am more important than whatever I asked you to leave it, and then I'm immediately rewarding you with food. We're right here and we're doing it together. If I miss that window, which it'll happen, and it's happened to me, it'll happen to you, you just got to be ready for it. If you miss that window and there's something happening over here and you're like, fuck, here comes a dog or he's going, and you need to use your leave it, and this is where you want to use it. Now it's not leave it as a game, now it's leave it. I said leave it, you need to leave it right now. And that's where you'll put pressure on that leash, but your attitude has to go right back to yes, right? You can't get frustrated. You got to let it go and think about okay, he did leave it. He did come back to me. And you can get him to this point. It's just going to be a little bit kind of shaky because there's some stuff to work through right there. But he will do this based on what you've already told me, his drive, and especially with that food drive. So when you first start out, though, you don't want to have to use it as that command yet. Not because it's negative, it doesn't matter. That's fine if you do it. But you just want that so dialed in that when you do have to use it as a command, you're not struggling for your life. You might have to put a little bit of pressure and your tonality might change, but that doesn't mean that you're going to fight him. It's still going to be oh shit, got it. Okay, I got to go back real quick. Because whatever's happening over here is going to be better. And so, and then you can start getting closer to things. And then what ends up happening is when Guinness starts, as you move on with this, Guinness sees the other dog. He hears that bark, whatever it is. Now you don't have to say leave it. Now he's just going to look at you hey, Remember when that stuff happens, we do something cool. But it's not just feeding him food. It's not just giving him his daily food. It's everything about you. Like your whole energy has to be like, you had to just have a pot of coffee when this is going on, because you need to be, you have to, like, if you have to match that energy, and his energy is like, I'm ready.
Yeah.
You know, so you need to be ready, and you need to make sure that you practice with that same energy. And then as time goes on, in the beginning, it's really hard. It's really hard to do this because it's tiring, it's tedious. But as the next couple of weeks, couple of months go on, then things start to kind of level out. Now you're matching energy, but it's not like all the way up here. Now you're matching energy where you can just kind of cruise. You know, you'll still do your stuff and you'll still practice it. And then you start to get into situations where you can go down different roads. You can go places. You can't, you know, that's down the road, but you can get there for sure. So your leave it is your number one that you want to work on. I would start with adding the clicker in your house. Like while you're doing things here at the house, while you're working on things inside, I would add that clicker when you're doing your yes, same thing. If you don't have the clicker, no big deal. If you have it, great. You know, I would start adding it just for that extra little oomph, you know, and so you can practice with it outside. Now, if he sees another dog, are you going to use it? No, because that's not going to matter. But you just want to start conditioning that leave it to where it's, ooh, that's fun. Ooh, that's great. Ooh, we're doing something together. You know, just to kind of add that extra element. Excuse me. So I would put that in there. If you don't do it, it doesn't matter. You're still going to have success. It doesn't matter. It's a nice added bonus benefit, you know, if you can find a way to work it in with all the things that you're doing. But if you can't, don't do it. And then, so you got to have a bulletproof leave it. That leave it has to be bulletproof. Your recall needs to be really, really strong, because in the event when you're using your longer line and you need to call a leave it, that's gonna suck. You know, if you don't have, but you got to do that. You got to use your leave it in that moment. And then that's when you hype up and you throw in your recall. Woo, pronto, you know, and you do that. And that's where it's really, really fun, because now he's going to, you know, just drive towards you. And so that can just be a whole game that you start practicing with it. But before you do those, the things that you need to do, because you do work a long day and he is a big dog, and there are things that he might need to get out. Doesn't mean that he's, you know, a dog like, you know, Billy or Kuma or any of these dogs that I have. It just means, you know, he's a dog. He's a dog. He's a big breed dog that probably wants to do some big breed things. So I would not miss a day of doing something that he really likes, that physically and physically helps him release, and mentally. And for him, your tug is such a great outlet. Like if you can get him to tug, that is such a good release for dogs. And I used to be, way back when, I know several people were like this, I thought it was just me, where I used to think that tug was going to make them more aggressive. I thought that was going to, you know, amp it up. I thought that was going to make everything worse. And when you do tug and you figure out your dog, and you can do it where you're tugging, and then you call him off of it. So whatever your release word is, you call that release. And even if you use two of the same thing, which is what I do to get that quick out, now you're making their brain work. And now you can start adding things to it. So if I'm doing tug, 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 and I call you off of it, and I give you this one back, and then I might send you to place. And then I might recall you back to me. And then we tug, 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 you know, so you're working his brain, you're working the tug, you're just doing a handful of different things. Doesn't mean you have to do it right up front. But that, when you wear a dog out like that, mentally and physically, I don't care what dog walks by. When they're done, they're done. And now you don't have a dog that's like red zone ready to go, because you did the things that are meeting his biological needs, so to speak, you know, with what you have, which are just really, really, really powerful things. And these are things that I have to think about with the amount of dogs and the way I live. And, you know, I don't have 10 acres where I can let them go do these dog things and just release all their wiggles. So I have to help them do it. And tug for these big guys is such a good release. And then what ends up happening is it makes that walk you know, now you're training cruise control. Now you're training, now you get to really bond that meditation and motion, so to speak, with that. That's where you really get that cool stuff on the walk. And then depending on what his drive level is for obedience, you know, I have a couple like Kevin, he was never real like, you know, sharp or snappy or any of that. Kevin, he's a huge bully. He doesn't really even care for tug. You know, he was all about nose work. He was all about like doing stuff that was just us. So when we would do the walks together with this kind of stuff, I didn't do a ton of obedience. I didn't do a ton of the extra stuff that I would do with, that I do in the videos, like with Billy, like between my legs and my emergency down and all. He just, it wasn't for him. And that was fine. I just didn't want him taken off after dogs or cats. And so the leave it was strong. The recall was strong. And then we just did a lot of scent work on top of it. Okay. So you figure out where your dog is, what works best with him, and the hunt with the prey or with the tug is always, you know, something super cool you can do. But if you don't have a backyard where you can do it, then just practice with that tug. Okay. Is that making sense?
It does. Yeah, it makes sense. He will not play outside.
Okay.
Not with a toy.
Okay.
He will do scent work all day outside with me. He adores that game.
Okay.
He lives for it.
Okay.
He will do scent work with me all day out there. But if I take a toy out there in the house, he's like, yeah, let's go. Okay. I take it outside, he's like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
Okay. Well, then stay with the scent work. And I would do, the only reason I suggest tug, and I really, for a dog like him, is because when they're that big and they're that strong, you know, they're beefy like that, they have the need to want to bite and hold and grip and do the things that breed's meant to do. And so if you can help them get that out, then when they feel so, it's like lifting weights, you know, you just like, whew, you finally feel a little bit better, you feel normal. Yeah. And so then when you go to do whatever you're doing next, you're not like so sharp and edgy and everything else that, you know, is coming at you. So if you do, you know, I would try, and then you have to try it up. And you do the lives with us in the reactivity group. Yeah. Do you do that? Okay. So stay in those, and then we can keep going with this and keep piecing things together. So, you know, you might do 5 or 10 minutes of tug work, maybe 5 minutes of scent work. And then when you do scent work, make sure that part of the protocol for scent work is you're making sure that you're going to bulletproof that recall. Okay. Like that should be the number one thing that happens with scent work, because everything you're doing right now, yes, it's for him, but you also have to make sure that there's something in there that is a teaching moment, because he's not in a place yet where you can just kind of let him, you know, go off and you know that he's going to come back, or you know that he's not going to flip out or any of that stuff. Right. You always want to make sure, oh, you son of a bitch. I forgot him on the 40-minute one. Oh, no. That's okay. It still has 10 minutes left. And if we don't finish, we'll just start it over. But you always want to make sure that you're making it work to your advantage. So it never has to be negative. And for a dog like this, you know, it's going to work. It's going to go backwards. So you always want to make sure that everything you're doing is for you too. So yeah, you can do scent work, and we're going to set this up, but I'm always going to make sure that your recall, like right when however you do your scent work, like you step backwards or whatever it is, that you're bulletproofing that recall for future situations.
So when I'm doing that, is it like, let him find one of the scatters or the fish that I've hidden and then call him back? Is that how I'm doing it, or am I calling him as he's searching?
So how do you do it currently?
Currently, if I'm in the house, I'll either put him in his kennel, put him on his place, or up on a stand, make him wait there, I hide it. So I make him wait there while I hide it. Okay. And then I'll release him, and I just let him do his thing. Okay. I don't, you know, maybe I'll encourage him if he seems to be having a hard time, but otherwise I just kind of let him do his thing to find the food. Okay. So, and even outside, that's what I do. I don't really do a whole lot of anything other than letting him search for it.
Okay. So I would start with, when you do it outside, does he watch you do it? Like he knows you're setting it up? Or
if it's just his kibble, yeah, he'll see me. Okay. If it's something where you know, I can't hold him and hide it like some fish or something,
Yeah.
then no, I have him in the house and then he'll go hide it.
Okay. So I would do, I would split it up and I would start with you hide whatever it is and only hide it in one spot. And the
Okay.
second he finds it, that's
Yep.
when you throw a party and recall him back to you.
Okay.
And the second he gets back to you, reward him.
Okay.
And then if you have, and then if you want to add to it, you know, then I would add in, once that starts working really well, you know, add in 2 or 3 more. So, and do you have a release command so he goes to find it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell him to go find it. Yep.
And he knows what to do?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then what you do is you recall him back to you, you reward him, and then you send him out again. Like,
Okay.
the game isn't over, you know, you send him back out and he has to go find it again, and then the second he finds it, you recall him back to you. And
Okay.
in the beginning, because you've already had this little routine, it might not work very well if you try to do, if you have multiple situations set up.
Right.
So if you just start with one, it might make it a little bit easier so he's not blowing you off. And that might be worthy of using your long line, depending on how strong your recall is. But that's where again, that's where it's going to benefit you for, you know, some of the reactivity stuff, some of the dog stuff, like really bulletproofing that recall. But also, it's just a great thing to do. Like, you're both having a good time with it. And what was I going to say? Oh, tell me again, when you said when you hunt for, when he does like the foraging for mice and that kind of stuff, is that a certain area that he does? Tell me that whole setup again. There was something I wanted to put in there.
It usually happens when we're on a hike. So really, it's any area where there's going to be some tall grass that the mice are likely going to be growing in.
Okay.
So where my husband takes him, there's some tall grass, and some moles apparently. So he routinely will, you know, he'll be sniffing the grass, and you can tell when he smelled something because he'll like dive in there, you know, and then he's like all in there trying to find it type of thing. So,
Okay.
Yeah,
I was gonna
that's
say
usually what he's doing.
there might be a situation in there where you could practice the recall, but in the same sentence, like, I don't want to interrupt that good time. You know, like, that's pretty cool to do.
Yeah.
So maybe towards the end of it, and then there'll be moments where you're like, you know what, I do need to interrupt this. You're always going to have good times coming on, and maybe you practice it later down the road and you just practice the recall. But that could be more of what you're doing right now with the scent work. Like, you're letting him have that success and then calling him back and then sending him back out, so that in the future, if you did need to call him off one of those situations, it's not always going to be like, everything's done, you know, and then they don't want to come back to you because they're having such a good time doing it. You know, so you always make yourself the most important thing, but that, you know, that comes with a cost. You have to be you have to be fun. You have to be the most important thing with it. Let me put her away. Let me grab Billy real quick. So give me just 1 sec. I just want to show you a couple things. Come on. Come here, baby. Come here. Come on. I know you don't want to go. Come on. Let's go. Come on, pronto.
Can I use a treat if I call them and then I give them a treat for that? Okay. Yes, please. Okay.
Come on.
Thank you. Because that's what I was trying to ask. She said this.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
Oh my God. All right, well, be careful, because if he lets go, you're gonna slam into the wall. I can't play right now. You go play with Daddy. No, like wiggle it, move into it. Don't hold it up like that. He can use his paws, honey. You don't have to hold it up like that. Step back, move into it.
Let him get it if you're gonna see it.
So I just want you to see, because he's a super intense dog,
Yeah.
and how loud. Basically, it's just like how loud and mouthy we get together.
Okay.
Billy, heel, heel. Leave it. Yes, good. Leave it. Good boy. Good boy. Good job. Ah, leave it. Sit. Heel. Ah. Good. Sit. No, sit. Come on. Good. Can you see this kibble down here?
Yeah, I can see
It's on the
it.
ground. He just went
Yep.
for it, and I don't have a leash or anything on him, which is fine. It's my fault. But for that, like my leave it has to be loud. It has to be powerful. It has to be something that he's going to listen to. Leave it. Yes. Good boy. Pronto. Ah. Right here. Pronto. Ah. Billy. Pronto. Yes. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. So remember this on the ground, when I call a leave it, never in the history of me doing this will I ever give him this food. I'm never going
Right.
to tell you release and go get it, because I don't want that to be something eventually you can have, ever. It has to be
Right.
really, really super powerful. And this is good boy. 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 Out. Yes. Good out. Good out. Good boy. Get it. Get it, Billy. Get it, Billy. Get it. Get it, boy. Get it. Give me that. Give me that. Give me that. Billy, out. Yes. Good out. Good boy. But everything with him in the very beginning is just really, really loud. Like loud, and I shouldn't say loud, it's just like I mean
Excited.
something. Yeah. And then a lot of movement, a lot of back, a lot of yes, a lot of good boy, good boy. You know, I want to be as excited as he is, and I want
Okay.
things to be that exciting for him. And so then when we go out there, that's how I'm able to keep his attention.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That
I'm
makes
watching
sense, yeah.
this and it's like it's about to shut me off.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so if it ends, because I want to make sure I answer your questions as opposed, oh, there we go. And it ended. Okay. Anybody that's on here, I'm going to grab a link and send it to her again, so that we can just finish that last little bit. Or maybe I'll just do it this way. Oh, nope, I only have her in here. Oh, you know what? I only have her number on my phone and it's not on my computer. Well, oh well, I'll have to call her. Okay, well, anybody that was watching this, if any of this was helpful, or if you need help with any, it's all of this is my leash reactivity course, and then we do live. So that's what I was telling her, to make sure she stays in the weekly lives, because my girl Sarah and I, this is where we answer all of our questions. I have an American bully, stubborn for sure, but really teachable. Yeah, so with her, it's a private group, and you have to have the course, which is only $20, to be able to participate in that. But that's where, like, all this stuff that she's asking, where we go through it, we always have a dog out here that we demo with. So when you get stuck, she just had a few more things that we needed to tackle. So I'm going to end this because I need to call her back, and I didn't see any of the questions that came on through here. So I don't know if I'll see anything when I stop this. Probably not. So, all right. The course is fixedleashreactivity.com.